Hi guys, it's Kristen at Food Chain. So today for the recipe, we're going to be doing a margherita pizza. And for this, we already looked at the ingredients list last week, but we're going to need some fresh mozzarella. The recipe called for strained tomatoes, so I picked up some crushed tomatoes that we're going to use on the pizza because we're not going to be using a sauce. This is going to make the sauce. So since they're already broken up into smaller pieces, this is going to do really well. And then we have our basil. So this is just some of the basil cuttings that I have that I've put in water. So if you guys were to get a basil cutting, you can see that just by putting it in water, you grow all these roots, and then you have at your access fresh basil all the time for your recipes. So I had mentioned that you could either buy pizza dough that's already put together, or you could buy maybe a pre-baked pizza crust. What I opted to do for this one was to show you guys, this is available at Kroger, Walmart, most of our grocery stores, and it's actually a local mill. So this is Weisenberger Pizza Crust Mix. So we're going to use this. All that you need to make the pizza dough is a bag of this and then some hot water. So let's get started. We are going to take a bowl and we're going to open up our mix here. And you want to put this in the bowl. And this can also, it's very cheap, so it's about $1.50, and it's a great way to also support local here in Kentucky. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to add a half a cup of hot tap water. Something that I want you guys to really pay attention to when you're cooking is not to get hot from the kitchen sink. So what I did is I took cold water and then I heated it up in the microwave. The reason you don't want to get hot water from your tap for cooking is sometimes in older homes the pipes are maybe made of lead, and so some of that can seep into the water and it can be really bad for you. So always use cold water when you're cooking, and you can always, if you need it hot, you can heat it up. So we're just going to add this to our mix here, and then we're going to take a fork and just mix it up. And this doesn't take long to do. And this makes it really, really easy. You can also make pizza dough from scratch. For that, you're going to need yeast, you're going to need flour, you're going to need salt, sometimes some sugar. So this way, all of those ingredients are already mixed together in the mix, and we just have to add the water. When it starts to stick together, you want to get rid of your fork and then use your hand to just bring it together. So you're going to push down and kind of fold it together just softly. You don't want to put a whole lot of pressure, and you want to do this very gently just until it comes together. So we're not kneading the dough right now, which is going to produce that gluten. We're just mixing it together. Okay, so once we have it in somewhat of a ball, and it's okay if it's not a perfect ball and you can see some creases, but it's all together now, we're going to take some olive oil and we're going to just coat it. So I have a little bit of olive oil here, and I am just going to pour it over top. We don't want to drench it, we just want to coat it, and then turn it so that the whole thing is covered. And there's some olive oil in the bowl, because what we're going to do is we're going to set this aside so that it can rise, and we want to make sure that it doesn't stick. So that's what the olive oil does. And now we're going to cover it with a towel, and we're going to set it to the side and let it rise for 30 minutes. So this recipe calls for a par-baked pizza crust. As you can see, we mixed up our dough before. It about doubled in size. We left it sitting for about 30 minutes. So what par-baked means is that you want to pre-bake your pizza dough before putting the toppings on it. So if you purchased a pizza crust that was already cooked, then you can skip this step and move along to after we par-bake our pizza crust. If you purchased one that was already mixed up, just follow the directions on the bag for what the temperature is and how long you want to put it in the oven. We're going to stick ours in there for about 6 to 8 minutes, and then we're going to check it to see how the dough is. So for ours, what we're going to do is grease a cookie sheet here. So I like to use a paper towel and just put some olive oil on that, and that makes sure that I don't use too much and helps me to spread it around on the cookie sheet. So just make sure that you spread it all over, and if you need to get more on your paper towel. And just make sure that there is some grease, because what that's going to do is it's going to help us to spread out our dough. So after we've done that, we're going to take our dough from the bowl, and using your hands, and this is going to get a little bit messy, and that's okay, you're just going to plop that down on your cookie sheet. And now you're going to use your hands and just gently push it into somewhat of a circle, and you want this to be a little thin. You don't want to keep it too thick because otherwise it'll take too long. So just kind of start in the middle and push out and keep going in a circle, and that will help to spread the dough. We're looking for about a 10-inch circle. So just keep going until you get about there. Okay, so that looks about good. And now what we're going to do is we're going to pop it in the oven. And you want to put it on the middle rack so there will be heat on top and underneath. And we're going to set a timer for about 6 to 8 minutes and keep an eye on it to make sure that it doesn't overcook. So our pizza crust, mine took about 8 minutes. The way that you can tell that it is pre-baked enough is if you touch it, there's no like springiness, your finger doesn't get stuck in it, so it feels pretty solid. And then you can even lift up a little bit of the corner and you can see that it's not sticking, that it's staying together. So it doesn't really have a lot of color on it, and that's perfect because we don't want it to burn. So what we've done is we've now switched our oven over to the broiler, and we've put it on the low setting for right now. And now we're going to top our pizza, and then the rest of the cooking is actually going to be done under the broiler in the oven. When you do have the broiler on, you want to make sure that you have the rack in the oven as high as it can go so that the pizza is going to be really, really close to the broiler, which is at the top of the oven. So now what we're going to do is we're going to top our pizza. I'm going to grab a spoon. So we have some of these crushed tomatoes. You want to be really careful. If you're using a diced tomato or like whole tomatoes, you want to make sure that you strain it so some of that liquid comes off. Since these are crushed, the liquid is in there already and mixed around, but we're just going to take some, we're going to put it on here and spread it about. You're going to use about 1/4 of a cup. And now I'm just going to spread this around. It's different than a pizza sauce. A pizza sauce is going to look a lot thicker when you're putting it on. If you're using diced tomatoes, you're really just going to see a bunch of diced tomatoes on here and not a whole lot of like sauce. It doesn't take a lot also. When you're doing sauce on a pizza, it doesn't take a lot because as it cooks and it heats up, it's going to spread out itself. So you don't want to put a lot on. Okay, so there we go. And now we're going to pull over our mozzarella that we sliced up earlier, and we're just going to place it around the pizza. And you should have about 6 slices. If you find that some of your slices are bigger than others, you can tear them in half. You can kind of spread it out. So just make sure, because these will melt then under the broiler. So just kind of evenly space them on the pizza. Okay, so now we're going to stick this back in the oven under the broiler, and because I just pulled this out, it's a little bit hot, so I'm going to grab an oven mitt here to hold on to it while I put it in the oven. And that's gonna go for 6 to 8 minutes, and you really wanna keep an eye on it because when you put things under the broiler, they can burn pretty quickly. We are looking for a little bit of some charred spots on the pizza dough, so it's gonna look a little bit black, but the cheese should melt. So that's really what you're looking for, is that melty, bubbly cheese. Okay, so our pizza's done. And as you can see, the broiler works really, really fast. I turned away for a second, so it looks like it got a little bit charred around the edges, but the cheese is melted. It's gonna taste fantastic. But we have some finishing touches for our pizza. So we've got our basil leaves. We pulled off about 6 basil leaves. You don't want to cook the pizza with the basil on top of it because these definitely will burn, especially if you're putting the pizza under the broiler. And you really want that fresh pop of the basil when you're biting into a piece. We're just going to take a little bit of olive oil and we're going to drizzle it over the top just as an extra kind of added flavor. Just going to do a little bit of oil, just a touch. And then we're going to take our 6 basil leaves here and we're going to just arrange them nicely. About 1 per piece of pizza. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And here's my 6th basil leaf. And there you go. There's your pizza. Let it cool down just a little bit, and then we're going to cut it.